Okay, shall we go ahead and get going? We have a good 2/3 of our signups online with us right now, so I think we can go ahead and get going. Welcome everyone to How to Navigate SRF, or State Revolving Fund, applying to the IEPA State Revolving Fund for Water Infrastructure and Lead Service Line Replacement Loans. So we're thrilled to provide you with the first and hopefully a series of similar events hosted by the newly created Cook County TAP, or Technical Assistance Program. I'm Ruth Kersey. I'm the project manager for Cook County TAP and the senior project manager for water programs at Elevate, and I'm going to be your host today. So before we get started though, I just wanted to take a moment to go ahead and sort of familiarize you with the panel, the control panel that you have, and also just do a little bit of housekeeping. So I want you to go ahead and take a look at your panel, because today we really want a lot of questions, and I want to make sure that you guys get your questions answered and understand how to make those questions happen. So I'm going to draw your attention to sort of the questions area on your panel, and you'll be using this section to enter your questions during the event. If you're unfamiliar with GoToWebinar, this is what the control panel on the audience side should look like. I have control of the mute button, but all the other functionalities should be working for you. So you can raise your hand, download handouts, and ask questions. We have a number of handouts that you can download to reinforce the information presented here today. And you can see those on your panel. We have 5 of them currently available. That's the maximum. And then we'll let you know where to get additional resources as we move through our presentations. And to ask questions, you're going to go to that questions area. You'll click on the down arrow. There's a little arrow that you click on to open it up. You'll type your question in and then make sure that you hit the send button so that we can see it. And I will be monitoring those questions throughout the presentations and stop presenters where I think is appropriate and ask those questions. But we also have a good chunk of time available at the very end of the presentation so that we can get additional questions answered. Let's see, we'll take a 2-minute break about an hour into the session, just because this is an hour and a half, and I know, people get kind of antsy, so we'll take a quick 2-minute break, and then we'll come back with a final portion from Ms. Krueger's case study, and then the other presenters will present, and then that'll be followed by another Q&A. So I'll be launching a few polls during today's session also, and after the webinar, you'll also be receiving a survey to provide feedback on how we did and any suggestions you may have for our next webinar. So please take a look, look for it as it comes into your emails and send it back. Your feedback is really important to us, especially as we're getting going here with Cook County TAP and providing the Cook County communities with the information they need. So I'll just pause here, make sure there's no questions in my panel, and it looks like we're all good to go. So we'll just keep it moving. So let's go ahead and get started with a few introductions. First, let's introduce Cook County TAP. So we're the host. I am part of Cook County TAP, and we're the host of today's webinar. So Cook County TAP is a new program that aims to provide engaging educational resources to Cook County municipalities for lead service line replacement and eventually water affordability initiatives made available primarily on TAP's website when it becomes available. I'll get to that in a minute. That includes all the topics listed on your screen here and more as we identify community needs. Cook County TAP is administered by Elevate Energy, or Elevate we like to call ourselves, in partnership with Cook County government, and funding is provided by the American Rescue Plan Act. One of Cook County TAP's first actions was to send out a survey to assess the needs of Cook County communities, see where communities are in their lead service line replacement journey, and find out what support is most needed. You may have received it at the end of the summer, and a big thank you to all of you who returned that to us. That information was invaluable as we moved forward here. But needless to say, securing funding was a top priority for most, and is why we're providing this webinar today, one of our, our first as Cook County TAP. We're so appreciative of all the partners for this webinar that came together to make it happen on a really quick turnaround. As mentioned, to make information available 24/7, Cook County TAP is developing a website with a target of early 2024 to go live. There we hope to post video recordings of webinars. In fact, we're recording today's and it will be shared on the site when it's up and running, and of course, much more information. In the meantime, we're using email contact to provide new and timely information of importance to the Cook County community. And this webinar, as I mentioned, is one of our first Cook County TAP offerings, and we're excited to have you all here with us. There's a fact sheet to download in the handout section about Cook County TAP and our sister program, LeadCare Cook County. And so you can download that from the handout section. I'm joined today by Jeannie Krueger of Arcadis. She's going to be our main presenter today. She is from the engineering firm Arcadis, and she's working closely with the Cook County Bureau of Asset Management to provide support to municipalities seeking funding for water and other infrastructure projects. Ms. Krueger is Vice President of Arcadis and an expert in applying for SRF and other funding for infrastructure projects, and has helped her clients secure more than $1 billion in SRF loans in communities across the Midwest. We're also joined by Delta Institute's Christine Murphy and Bill Schleiser. Christine Murphy is the administrator of Delta Institute's Environmental Finance Center, and she leads community technical assistance for water infrastructure projects, has 25 years of water engineering and floodplain management experience, and is a certified floodplain manager and climate change professional. Christina will be joined by Bill Schleiser during the question and answer session, and Bill is the CEO of Delta Institute and is the director of US EPA Region 5's Environmental Finance Center. As CEO, Bill drives strategy behind Delta's collaboration with more than 180 communities in Chicago and throughout the Midwest to solve environmental challenges and spur economic development. He has over 20 years of experience in system analysis, environmental science, and consulting, and is currently coordinating the development of the successful Environmental Finance Center program. Delta is currently working with 5 communities as part of the EFC in collaboration with Great Lakes and in collaboration with the Great Lakes Community Action Partnership, which is also a Region 5 EFC, is assisting another 18 communities as they work to develop water infrastructure projects. So welcome to all 3 of our panelists. We're excited to have you here today. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll to see who we have here today. So poll number 1. Okay. You should be seeing on the poll on your screen now. So what we're asking is for you to just select the title that works best for you. And then I will share that with everyone. Take about another 5 seconds here, and then I will close it out. Great. I'll go ahead and close the poll and share it. So basically, we have 43% of our audience is public works administrators or employees, no elected officials, 25% municipal employees, 18% NGOs, and 14% others. So this is really important information for our presenters so they kind of know who they're speaking to today and can sort of align their messaging with that group. So thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and hide that and move on. So just as a quick overview, here are the goals and learning objectives of today's event. So first, we'll be providing a high-level overview of what State Revolving Fund is, how much funding is available, and a basic timeline for getting your application in. Again, this is very high level, and we will be digging deeper as we go through the case study. Those points will be hit on again, but I just wanted to give a summary of that. So that'll be my portion of today's presentation. Jeannie Krueger from Arcadis will then provide an in-depth case study of the application process and what to expect as you move through. This is the heart of this webinar and will last about 40 minutes or so. Finally, we'll have a brief presentation from Delta Institute, one of the 2 US EPA environmental finance centers for Region 5, and Build Up Cook County to introduce their programs, which provide hands-on help to municipalities in Cook County seeking funding for water infrastructure. And then one more time, we'll have that question and answer, and I won't belabor that. Just get your questions in. Let's make sure we answer all of your questions and really make this a super useful presentation to you. So again, one more poll before we move on to Ms. Krueger's event. So are you planning on submitting an SRF application in fiscal year 2023? Okay, go ahead and close it, share. So what we have here is about 46% said yes, so that's awesome. I think this is going to be really useful to you. No, you're not planning on submitting, but maybe you're planning on submitting in the future, so make sure you get your questions in today. And then 38% say and those may be the folks that are here just for informational purposes, but that's also really great to know. Thank you so much. And I'm going to hide that and move on. Okay, so here are the bipartisan infrastructure law and SRF basics. So the bipartisan infrastructure law, I'm sure you've all heard lots about it, but it makes an historic investment in drinking water and wastewater infrastructure to deliver clean drinking water to all American families and help to eliminate the nation's lead service lines, as well as providing funding for many other infrastructure projects. And I'm sure you've all heard about it: bridges, transportation, etc. It's really historic. It's a huge amount of money, more money than the government has ever provided for water infrastructure projects. And right now there's approximately $64 billion earmarked for water and wastewater programs, and about 23 billion, give or take a $500 million or so, dollars are available to state revolving funds. It also lays out administrative rules to ensure there is equitable distribution of these resources, because we know the impacts of lead and water are distributed unequally in our society, and so there are rules in place to make sure those funds go to the folks that need them the most. So the funds are distributed to the state revolving funds or SRF programs, and Illinois is managed by the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, and you have their website there up on your screen. Illinois began receiving funding in 2022 with a significant increase in 2023. There's approximately $230 million in fiscal year 2023 for lead and water projects. We expect a similar level of funding in 2024 to 2026, but these totals are always subject to change. We really don't know what Congress will be doing, so we'll keep you posted, and that's something that Cook County TAP will certainly be doing for you, is making sure you know what type of funding is available and when it becomes available. So state revolving funds are designed to provide below market rate loans and grants to fund water infrastructure improvements to protect public health and the environment. This is just a high-level overview of the basic steps for securing SRF funding. It's available 1 or 2 times a year. Basically, there's an initial time, and then there's a bypass period, which I'll talk about in a minute here. The terms of the loan are 20 to 30 years. The lead time from planning to loan execution is about 1 year, so there's a pretty big lead time there in Illinois. And the types of loans are principal forgiveness loans. That's about 49% of the loans, with a loan cap of about $3 million. And then a principal repayment loan, those are 51% of the loans to water systems that don't meet disadvantaged community criteria, and that loan cap is around $2 million, although I know that those caps are a little squishy and are changing, and Jeannie may be able to talk a little bit more about those, but I don't want to assume she can, but she may be able to. So then the timeline for an SRF application, and I know I'm screaming through this, and again, that's so that we can have enough time to have Jeannie speak and our other panelists speak and get plenty of time for your questions. But here's the timeline for an SRF application. So it starts across the top and goes along the bottom. So essentially, fiscal year starts for Illinois to start thinking about funding projects on July 1st of a given year. Basically, they're accepting applications for the initial rounds from July 1st to December 31st, but I've seen indication that they really need to have their applications in by September 30th for folks to get on something called the intended funding list, which is their list, which they're going to start moving those projects forward. Really, but you can submit them all the way through December 31st. After December 31st, there's a bypass period, which if there's any funding remaining in the system, other projects may be considered. All projects must have submitted a funding nomination form and obtained planning approval by March 31st of the following, So for here, it would be March 31st, 2024 for this fiscal year. And then the applicant bid and advertisements should be completed by April 15th. And then all financial documents should be submitted to review and process to release the loan by June 15th. So again, this is just a high-level overview of how you put in your SRF application, and obviously Jeannie will be talking in a lot more detail about this coming up in a minute here. And I'm about to send it over to Jeannie, but before I do, I see there's a question and I'll check it out in a minute here, but I'm gonna launch my third poll. Has your utility ever applied for an SRF loan before? Your utility or your community? Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and share it. So 25% said yes, and they received a loan within the past 3 years. 5% yes, received a loan more than 3 years ago. 15% said yes, but they did not receive the loan. So that totals to 45% of our audience. 30 said no, they've never submitted, and 25% do not know. Thank you for that. Again, very informative for our presenters to understand. Go ahead and hide that. So now I am going to switch the presentation over to Jeannie Krueger. So just give me 1 minute to switch that over.
Yeah, we've got some high-tech things going on here.
Which, it's always fingers crossed that it works.
Right.
Okay. And I'm looking at the question now.
Oh.
Okay, folks are having, I'm just going to answer these questions. Folks are having problems downloading the bottom 3 attachments. They are very large. So Jeannie will be telling you where to get those. And yeah.
And there's a trick, of course.
Yeah, and I will make sure that the slides are available afterwards to everyone as needed.
Okay, can you see my screen, Ruth? Just making sure.
I can.
Okay, well, let's get going. So I just want to mention, again, I'm Jeannie Krueger, just a little bit about me. I have been in the business for over 26 years, about 8.5 years with Arcadis. I love it there, but we managed to kind of find our little niche in really getting to know SRF and putting in quite a lot of loans. So hopefully I can walk you through, and if you've got questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and Ruth's going to help me out there with kind of getting those answered for you. What I wanted to tell you a little bit about today is I am currently working with the Cook County Bureau of Asset Management Build Up Cook program. And now you're like, oh, all these programs. Well, we are all sort of interlinked, and we all have inner working groups, and we share, information all the time, and we collaborate. So Cook County TAP is a fantastic program that's really an educational look at making sure that you guys can get the funding you need, you get the help you need, and it's really, I think it's been very successful. Now, Build Up Cook is going to be a little bit different, and it's it's a newer program, and I just wanted to kind of give you a little overview. I'm not going to go too crazy, but I really wanted to get that word out. I promised our director that I would. So we are Build Up Cook, and we are reaching out using those American Rescue Plan or ARPA funds to put them to use. Now, the reason is ARPA is twilighting. It needs to be committed by the end of 2024 and spent by the end of 2026. So you can imagine, like, everyone's sort of scrabbling to get all of those ARPA funds spent. And that's countrywide, that's everyone. So what we're doing here is the Bureau of Asset Management is basically the folks who do maintain the buildings and infrastructure in Cook County. We've got lots of programs, fantastic folks. And they are reaching out to, right now, a number of what we would consider disadvantaged communities that have been underserved historically in Cook County. So there's a pot of money then that's being sort of offered. Part of that is my services to help get funding in place. Now, what do they do? This is a future state. It's going to grow. It's going to be an amazing program. We've got a lot of this in place already, where we're helping with water infrastructure, stormwater, sewer, anything like that, environmental buildings, and then some capacity building, which I think is a great opportunity, especially here in conjunction with Cook County TAP, in that you're educating, you're getting help. And we know that some of your departments are just tiny, and sometimes we can be an extension of that, as in things like funding and grant funding and things like that. So I just wanted to do a quick overview of what we're doing with Build Up Cook, and to kind of show what's the difference, between Build Up Cook and Cook County TAP. Although we're both Cook County, we're kind of working together. So this is an overview of our state revolving fund. And I like this graphic because it kind of shows you that it's a little more complicated than than just sort of going, hey, can I have some cash? So if you look at the number one here, there's two sources of funds: the EPA on the federal level, and then the state government does a match. Also, what they're doing is they are taking bonds, they're issuing bonds to fund this program. So the bond proceeds then come on number three, and they put those bond proceeds in the state revolving fund. They then make disbursements to, some of you have already done SRF loans, to municipalities. You do your great project, you're paying your contractors, and then their loans are repaid. That goes back into there, and then they repay their bonds. So that's just an overview of how this whole thing works. I know I'm sort of making it kind of simple, but it really kind of, it's interesting, and it's important to understand how these things work. So here's an overview of the processes. So really, there are some major steps to applying for SRF, and this also includes BIL. And I probably should stop real quick and interject that bipartisan infrastructure law, or also let me get this right, it's IIJA. It was the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Thank you. Acronyms. Anyway, so BIL and IIJA are the same. So what it is it's a federal injection of money for lead replacement and removal and replacement, contaminants, like emerging contaminants, so PFAS and things like that. And then as well as actually a bonus to, not a bonus, but a supplement, sorry, to their base SRF program. But what that means is the federal government doesn't have any way to distribute these funds in an equitable way, to each of the people. So what they're doing is they're using these state revolving funds. Now, these were never really set up as sort of a grant mechanism, so all of the SRFs have really had to kind of get in there and make a decision on how to handle this, how to get this, how to get these funds disseminated in an equitable way. So 49% will be given as forgiveness loans, and the other 51% are going to be given as zero interest loans for the BIL money. Now, the regular SRF program, anything outside of lead replacement, is just the standard SRF program and will be a loan as normal. So what we've got here is the major first step is creating a project plan. And what we're doing here is basically saying, who are you? What are you trying to do? How much do you expect to cost? And when do you plan to do it? So it's not that easy, unfortunately, but that's really the essence of what we're trying to do here, right? What we're trying to accomplish. Uh, the state is, I keep teasing them about this. I'm like, when are you going to get off paper? So you do have to submit 3 hard copies to Springfield. And what you want to do is you don't want to wait too long. You really want to get that approval by March 31st, and you have to give them some time. So right now we're button up on almost too late to get onto the intended use plan for the next fiscal year, but you can still, you can still give it a shot. They will work with you. That's one thing I will talk about in a little bit is that the IEPA is so willing to collaborate. So keep that in mind. Another thing that we've recently learned is that your inventory must be complete, or you must be able to at least have a year one, hey, we're going to do this neighborhood, or this area of town. And that's because the demand is so high. I think that's had to come into play. So another thing I wanted to explain is that the reason why these have been so long and really coming out is that Illinois had to create a new administrative rule, taking scoring from the the median household income of the entire community down to the census tract, because we know that some communities have a mixture of disadvantaged and not disadvantaged, right? So they wanted to make it a fair playing field so that, I'll use Chicago as an example. As a whole, Chicago did not qualify under the old rule to receive any forgiveness funding. However, we know that there are pockets of Chicago, certain census tracts that absolutely do. So that's really what the purpose of the administrative rule change was. Now I'm hearing from them that that's going to be finalized here in the new year. It's with the state government folks. They got to do all their their fun stuff. So having said that, just kind of a little off track here, but so the first step is your project plan. We're going to go through that in detail, so don't let that scare you. Part of this is your technical reviews and financial review. And we're going to go through this too. So IEPA does review this document, this project plan document, very thoroughly. And that's why I say it could take a couple of, several months for approval. And you must receive approval before you can move forward with the next steps, which is funding nomination, which is pre-application and an application. And then there are outside agencies that you'll need to work with, like IDNR, Department of Natural Resources, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for things like wetlands and endangered species and things like that. It's all very workable because you're not really creating new water systems. You're replacing what's there. So it's all pretty straightforward, but again, you're fitting into a process that's already been established. So the part of this too is that you need to, once IEPA does their thing and they're like, all right, we can move forward, there is a requirement that you publicly advertise that you are using IEPA funds. That is standard for the program, for the SRF program. And it requires that public hearing as well. So those are quite easy. You can do them with a webinar. You don't have to have a room full of people. You could also do it in your city hall, anything like that. But just to answer questions about what the program entails. And usually by that time you've got the answers to those questions. They're probably asking, what are you replacing lead pipes with? Will you be digging up my yard? Things like that. But it does give the public a chance, because it is federal money. We have to give the public a chance. Use your checklists. IEPA is extremely good about outlining their processes, making information available, and picking up the phone with you. So just keep that in mind. You're not alone. You're never alone. We still call them regularly for questions and things that are just a little, that pop up from time to time. And your approval is not official until they send out their letter. They send out a letter and saying, yep, everything's good to go. You've done your public hearing, you've done your advertising, you're good to go. That then can trigger your funding nomination form, which in turn gets you on the intended use plan. And that is how they intend to allot the funds that they have for that current year. Let me also mention, if you don't get on next year's intended use plan, it's not the end of the world. These BIL funds are around through 2026. So you will get your shot, you will get your chance, but I do recommend you get started ASAP. That way you can kind of be on the front end. Let's see. So those need to be in by, I would say, March 30. Well, no, they have to be in by March 31st in order to get on the intended use plan. That is a hard date. We simply email them in. And again, you can work with IEPA. They always assign once you have a project plan, they'll assign you a project manager that will work with you and step you through everything. So then once you get on that intended use plan, which comes out in June for comment, and then it's official by July, I believe, you can go ahead and initiate your loan. Whether or not it's a loan or a forgiveness, it kind of works the same. It's all coming through that process. So we're going to just refer to it as loan here, okay? So all of that work must be competitively bid. And all of the contract documentation needs to be sent down to IEPA. That would include specifications or recommendation of award, things like that. And you also need, there is a disadvantaged business enterprise program. They have goals, and all they require is a good faith effort that you advertise that you're doing this and you're looking for DBEs for at least a day prior to opening bids. So then once you get the bids open, you have to send all of those. So a lot of paperwork. I know you're kind of thinking, oh goodness, it's true. It is. But at the end of the day, once you know the formula, you're all set. So then they do want copies of the bids. They want your recommendation of award. They just want to make sure that they are in line with federal requirements. Speaking of requirements, we do have Davis-Bacon prevailing wage requirements, BABA, it's Buy America, Build America. That has superseded the American Iron and Steel requirement. If you're already familiar with, emphasize here is, oh, sorry, I've got a couple documents up to help me. Okay, so this is I've broken this into 3 pieces because it's a long document, and I'm not gonna go crazy, but I do want you to understand that if you just use this as a guide, and if you structure your project plan in accordance with your checklist, you're gonna be A-okay. So a couple of interesting points. Right now they are, well, I think they said they always did this, but I'm not sure. So you have to complete a funding nomination form ahead of time. So these are the same ones that are going to be turned in March. However, having said that, I will inform you that they're going to create one for BIL and one for the regular program, but those will come out in the new year. But for now, there is an intended use plan on their website. I do want to back up real quick because I want to show you real quick where you can access all this stuff. And hopefully you can see that. I have brought up IEPA's website. And I'm just not going to stay here very long, but I do want to show you that they have, and all you have to do is Google Illinois SRF, and it'll pop up as your first one. It gives you guidance on BABA, gives you any kind of news, implementation, guidance, phone numbers, and then it gives you an overview of their plan, which I just sort of went through with you. It's got some explanations there, and then it's got a contact list, and they are so responsive. I couldn't say enough good things about this group. They're fantastic. So in the loan forms section is where I grabbed all of this stuff, and if you're having trouble opening it, there is a trick. You have to save it to your desktop and open it from there. It's an IEPA thing. I don't know, but it drives my team crazy. So they have drinking water, they have necessary forms for both. They have drinking water, which is what BIL is. So just so you're aware, so you got your funding nomination form, you've got your checklist, which we're looking at right now. And so all of these are right there. Again, you'll have to save it to save it to somewhere to open it, okay? So there's that. Now, back to this, but again, we're kind of talking, okay, who are you, right? That's that first step that I was talking about. And so you kind of want to be able to, this is easy one, right? You can fill all this out with your eyes closed. But some of this stuff, so your background, total population, really this is just a little bit of a write-up. I'm going to show you an example of one in a little bit, but it doesn't need to be War and Peace. It just needs to be a couple of paragraphs about your water system, your population, your customer base, and just enough that they understand, you know, who you are and what, you know, what you're trying to do basically, or, you know, in reference to what you're trying to do. So again, what I want to show you is on the website and on this form, there is a detailed description for each item. So there is guidance, and this is all in the form itself. So don't be afraid to dig in there. And I tried to attach it to here so that you could actually have a look, but there we are. So a couple of things is, you know, we're looking at the existing public water supply. We want to know what treatment facilities. We want to know, is it you have water storage, distribution system? We want to understand. I'm talking, you know, miles of water main, anything pertinent to help them understand your water system. Now with lead, this is a little bit easier. Number 3, the description and justifying lead is because the federal government is making you take it out. And really it's as simple as that. They just dropped the lead and copper rule improvements today draft. So you have that to look forward to, but there's nothing too crazy on there. As if there weren't enough rules to keep up with. So we also, they are number 4, looking for system compliance with all applicable laws, meaning, you know, do you have water sewer separation? Are you, you know, following all the guidelines that are set in the Illinois code? So really, you know, normally you're good. So it's just a sort of a check. Basis of design alternative, there really isn't any for lead, but you would have to fill this out for if you were doing a facilities project or you were doing sewer or water main project. And I should tell you that only lead is eligible for the BIL money, only lead replacement. So if you're doing a water main and lead replacement in tandem, you'd have to have 2 loans, one for the lead replacement and one for your water main program. Again, it's different funding sources, it's different rules. So just something to keep in mind. And again, we can talk about that later if you've got those questions. Inventory is a big one. So what I want to tell you right up front is there is a requirement if you are looking, so April 15th, your inventory is due per the EPA, US EPA. Actually, it was Illinois, US EPA is later, but Illinois likes to make it easier on ourselves. However, if you are looking for an extension on your inventory, you simply have to email epa.leadandcopper spelled out at illinois.gov and ask them for an extension. That's it. And they haven't told me how long they're giving folks, but they need that by January 15th in order to get that extension. So keep that in mind. We're running out of year here. So you're going to want to do that even if you're not sure. If you're not sure you'll make it with your inventory, I would go ahead and ask for that extension. Okay, so having said that, you kind of need to include your inventory and environmental impacts, IDNR. So IDNR does their check with a system called EcoCat. And you go in and you sort of put your municipality in there and they tell you if there's any endangered species or any wetlands that you need to look at. Again, it's a very simple, easy process. I guess we could even take a look at how you do that. That might be another session. But what we've got here then is moving on. A big one that's usually a little bit of a pain is the 8.5 by 11-inch maps showing your project locations. This with lead is becoming much more, it used to just be we'd put one of the municipality in there and we'd be all set. Not anymore. Now we have to show, okay, what part of town are we going to tackle first in year 1? And if you have your whole inventory done, I would go for a whole 5 years and just say year 1, year 2, year 3, you know, and so on. You can get project planning up to 5 years, but you'd have to have your inventory pretty much done to get that 5 years. That's kind of new. So you want to have an estimate of total costs. You'll have a high level breakdown of, you know, materials, construction. Um, they don't expect you to have this all, in stone. But what I would tell you is one of the tricks of the trade is aim high, because they're not going to let you have more money that's listed in your project plan. So I would put a little contingency in there for yourselves, because if you say I'm going to write it for, say, hypothetically $10 million, and then you come back like, oh, I need 12, you'd have to get more project planning and that whole thing again. So just to save yourself a little bit of hassle in the future, you want to make sure you're just giving yourself a slight cushion. Don't go crazy, but you want to do that. Financial arrangements, are your audits up to date? If not, that's not necessarily a deal breaker. Just talk to them, because with the forgiveness loans and things, if you're a disadvantaged community, there's ways to handle that. It's a work with IEPA, collaborate with IEPA kind of situation. They're very good. And then your water rate structure, this one's important too to include. So they're trying to get an idea of water consumption, your water rate structure, what's your revenue coming in, is what they're really trying to get at. And so anything that you can propose rate changes, things like that. These are more important for the loan side of things, just because they're trying to basically prove that you can repay the loan. And that's pretty normal for any of these loans for, state and federal funds. So you're gonna want to include any kind of O&M certification. That one, I have to ask about that one actually, but that one is less important as getting in there with any green infrastructure with lead. You're not necessarily going to have that, but that will be if you have other kinds of projects like facilities projects, green alleys, things like that. Schedule, a rough schedule for your implementation. This does not need to be set in stone, but you do need to have a rough idea, because it does help them understand how to plan out their cash flow. Copies of intergovernmental agreements. Who do you buy water from? Is it Chicago? They just need a copy of that agreement. Do you buy it from another municipality? You just need a copy of that agreement. And any kind of other IGAs, intergovernmental agreements that you think might be pertinent. IEPA construction permits are not required for lead. So you'll just to have that in mind, that's not a big deal. That's more for facilities type project and for sewer projects. And then you'll need to tell them the name of your local newspaper. And that is because we talked about earlier, you're going to be doing a bit of advertising. So that's what they want to understand. And they want it to be where you would go if you were going to advertise for a contractor. That's what they want to know. What are those? Again, the funding nomination form needs to be submitted with the project plan. They've sort of highlighted it this time. Now, I just want to review a little bit, and this is my favorite paper picture, because that's how I feel sometimes when we're putting, especially, with Build Up Cook, we're assembling about 13 of them right now. So you can imagine times 3 how much paper I'm going to have. But we want to have the completed inventory, or at least be able to show them a year 1, and they will give you 1 year planning. And again, this is a collaborate with IEPA thing. Your maps, you're going to need to kind of dig those up. Sometimes those are hard to get your hands on, but your engineer should be able to help you. A cost estimate, like I said, include about a 10% contingency, because you can't borrow more than this value. Your existing rate structure and average residential water consumption, very important. Also your IGAs and water agreements, very, very important. And again, no permits required for lead, in your local newspaper. So these are just kind of the ones that we see, we're trying to collect all this and assemble all this. And these are some of the sticky ones sometimes where you got to go and dig. So what I want to show you here, and I know this is very small because it's not meant for you to read. What this is a copy of the funding nomination form. This is sort of the big step 2 after your project plan is complete.
Jeannie, can
Now,
I just
sure.
interrupt you real quick? So there is a question,
Sure.
but I would like the person to elaborate on it. So if you could elaborate, this is Mr. Colby, I believe, lead replacement plan or the lead inventory. Can you write a little bit more information about what your question is? And I will ask it to Jeannie when I get it. That's it. Thanks. Go ahead, Jeannie.
Okay. So while we're waiting for that to come in, because I did mean to pause to see if you had any project plans questions. So do type them in if you do. We will also have a Q&A in a little while, so you can save them for then too. But the idea with this funding nomination form, again, is to get on the intended use plan. And these need to be received by March 31st each year. Even if you're doing a 5-year program, you have to put them in each year so that you get, more of funding each year. And this just helps them kind of go, okay, this municipality needs money, this one needs money, this one needs money. They all have project planning. We know that. Because you can't submit a funding nomination form and get on the intended use plan if your project plan is not approved. So that's why we kind of went in and said, give them time to get approval, give yourself a little cushion, because this step would prohibit you from being on the intended use plan if you don't have that approval. What you want to, and again, we kind of say that approval needs to be in by March 15th because you still have to advertise for 10 days that, for your, to complete your project plan. You have to advertise that you're using that funding for 10 days, and that would give you time to have that done and back in by the 31st, so that you could then put in your funding nomination form. So it's very simple, actually, and I'm watching my time here, Ruth, so just let me know if I'm getting too long-winded. But I wanted you to kind of notice it's a very simple form. This is probably the easiest step. But what you will have to do, it will be signed by your mayor or anyone with that authority to sign. This does not commit you to anything, which I want to make that clear. Neither the project plan nor the intended use plan commits you to anything. It's not until you actually execute that loan or forgiveness loan that you are committed to anything. So just to kind of, I know that's been a question that I've had come up with clients in the past, is like, well, what does this commit us to? Nothing. It just gets your place in line. Do we have that question in yet, Ruth?
Yes, we do. I answered it
Okay.
in the chat, but I will shoot it to you too. So the question was about, you mentioned that it was a good idea to apply for an extension, wanted to understand
Yeah.
whether that was the plan or the reporting requirement.
Oh,
So
yes.
go ahead.
That's the inventory. That's just for the inventory requirement that's due in mid-April of 2024. And like I said, even if you're not sure, you think you might make it, but you're not sure, just give yourself that cushion. It doesn't hurt. And it's simply an email saying, my community needs an extension. And Adam Nutt, he's with compliance there. He's a great guy. He will issue you one. Okay. So
Great.
now I'm not gonna step into, is there any questions on, first of all, is there any questions on funding nomination forms? And Ruth, just shout if there is. I'm going to keep going, okay?
Yeah, nothing in the chat,
All right.
nothing right now, but I'll let you know.
Okay, great. So now the loan application process, you've put in your funding, you've done your project plan, you've gotten that approved, you've put in your funding nomination form, you're on the intended use plan. Okay, it's time. So these applications are not, it's not terrible, but they do have a couple of items that are really, can be a little bit sticky. So basically, I kind of spoke early on that you have to turn in your construction documents, meaning specifications that went out for bid, things like that. All of that has to be in before you can go out and advertise for your work to be done, just so you're aware. And I kind of remind you of that here in the top left of this is specs and contracts. Again, reminding that there's Davis-Bacon, prevailing wage, there's DBE goals, there's BABA requirements. And, again, there's another checklist for this. So it's really nice. Follow your checklist. They make it very nice. So the application then includes things like loan terms, any ordinances that may be pertinent, legal opinion for a loan. You'll need your attorney to basically say, yep, the city can take this on and it is a good option. And if you have any questions on that, we can talk offline, but it's very simple. Again, IEPA will help you. Debt obligations. This is where they are really diving into more of the financial things. So just your debt service, basically. What do you already have outstanding with respect to loans? And then financial projections. They're looking for the last 3 years and the next 5 in forecast, and that's revenue. Just to see your revenue and your costs and things like that. Just financial, basic financial package stuff. And then there's a tax exemption certificate that, most municipalities will have. And it's, it's a form that you could just have signed by your mayor, and it's all set. It's actually on the web. There's on their website, they have a form. In permits, like I said, for LSLR, they are exempt, but for other types of SRF things, you'll have to work with EPA to establish those permits. Again, you're going to send, then your next step is you're going to have to send your bids in once they open and a recommendation for award. And then in about 2 to 3 weeks, EPA will have the loan documentation for you to go ahead and execute with your mayor or other person of signature authority. So a couple of things here. I've just kind of included some links for when we share this. Hopefully I'll share this with you and you'll be able to use some of these. They are also located on the SRF website. But there is an apprenticeship initiative that's hoping for 10% goal. I know I sit on a couple of panels that we are really hoping to get the apprentice program beefed up, because with all the plumbing companies that have lead, are trying to get lead contracts, there's not really enough apprentices. So there is a waiver application for this, but I would recommend trying very hard to do that first. It's hard to get sometimes. BABA has been around. It is now official. We can't really apply for waivers anymore on that. So that's kind of, everything has to be built in America, bought in America. That's going to be used, federal dollars will be used for. American Iron and Steel is previously what they had in this program, and it's been superseded by BABA. And then again, your DBE goals. Typically it's 5% MBE, 12% WBE, and a good faith effort is required, and that they need to be able to approve. Now, there are things like signage that have to go up at your construction sites, and the EPA does not want to be listed as the sole person running this project. So I kind of have an example here of what one might look like. I think I pulled it off I just Googled, and they want you to show all of them. They don't want to be like, this is EPA's project, so you can't do that, but the signage requirements will outline that for you, also available on the website. So now I think, Ruth, I've got to the point where I'm at the end, so if you've got any quick questions, that's fine, but all that's left is lessons learned. So
Okay, great. So that's good timing. I was just about to write you a note to say we're pretty much at time. So this is great. Yes, please put your questions in. I do have one question here about applications. So just to, this person is asking, if you're putting a application in and you have this window, let's say from July 1st when the fiscal year starts to September 30th, let's say you get your application in November 30th, like today, you're getting
yeah.
submitting your project plan and everything. What happens to that submission? Because you're right in the middle of everything.
Yeah, so what you're going to do then is you're going to put that tentative schedule in your project plan. So the project plan then will be approved for whatever time, so say you're going to start construction in July to September. You want to do that now. You want to get your project plan done now. And what it will do is, and that schedule kind of say, hey, tentatively we want to do our schedule, when start in July, and that's documented in there. It's going to be valid then. So all you'll have to do is then, and get yourself on the, your funding nomination form in March, and then you'll be able to, by that time, hopefully you'll be able to execute. The earlier, you can start as early as you want with these project plans, because they stay approved. Provided that you're not doing one like, oh, I was going to do this 2 years ago, I'm just going to use this one. You have to kind of stick with the schedule of what you originally said, and then work with IEPA. If it shifts a little bit, that's okay. They'll work with you, but you can't use one from 2 years ago that you never did, if that makes sense. But I would say the earlier you can get started, the better, because once you get approval, it opens the door so there's less work to get that actual loan in place and get your project going.
So let's say you planned a project for 2025. Go ahead and put your plan in now,
Yeah,
because then you'll get on the list and be able to get approval in the next fiscal year when those funds
right.
become available. Okay. Great. So that's the only question I have right now. Let's go ahead and just we're sort of short on time. I was going to take a 2-minute break, but if everybody hopefully is in agreement, please feel free to get up and walk around. But we're just going to forge ahead here, I think. And I have to take a second to switch it over, but to my presentation eventually here, so you'll have time then as well. But let's
Yeah.
just walk through the lessons learned. Go ahead.
Yeah, so very quickly, there's not a ton here, but I think I've kind of covered this, is reach out to the IEPA early in your process. Don't wait, just get to know them. Like I've been saying, they're extremely collaborative. They're there to help. They're willing, they're eager. They will help you. And when in doubt, ask them. I always ask them. If I'm not sure, or pick up the phone. There's a lot of competition for forgiveness. Now, stay flexible with your program, okay? So I don't know what the cap is going to be in addition to, or, to kind of follow on to what Ruth was saying, IEPA doesn't know what the cap is going to be just yet. So what happens is they need to see who gets all their project plans in, how many funding nominations come in, and then they'll be able to figure out how much they can give everyone this first year. Keep in mind, if you don't get a bunch this year, you just need to tailor your program to, 4 years or something where you can just keep getting money each year. And that way you're not having to come up with that revenue on your own. So stay flexible and yeah. Once they know, and they'll start to be able, also remember census tract is the forgiveness. If you don't have disadvantaged census tracts, you're likely only going to get a 0 interest loan. But those can go up to 30 years. So start the process early, which we kind of reinforced here with that last question. You can totally start early. I've done that where I've put project plans in 2 years in advance because I knew my time frame was going to move, and I basically put that in my project plan. And then I would keep in touch with them and update. So you've got all the hard work out of the way. You've got all of that in place. You're all set to go. Don't be intimidated by paperwork and stick with those checklists. They're there for that. I mean, use that order, everything. And then you're going to need third-party input. So please do think about that to get that started early as well, like IDNR and Army Corps of Engineers for wetland permits and things like that. And stay organized is our top tip from Arcadis, is that this is a lot of documents flying around. So just find your best organization process. And I'm sorry we didn't get to my example, but what I can do, since I found it on the web, is probably send it out.
Yeah, that would be great. So you can share that with
Yeah,
me, Jeannie, and I'll make sure that I send it out in an email to everyone so they'll have that as well as the
sure.
recording of the presentation and everything else. So, and
Great.
links to the handouts. So yeah, so everybody will have a lot of information after this. Great. Well,
And
thank you so
please,
much. Go ahead. You want to finish up?
please feel free to reach out if you'd like to write down my phone number or, sorry about that. Uh, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them over email or something.
Perfect. So Jeannie.Krueger@arcadis.com. Pretty straightforward. Phone number 713-582-9332 for folks that are maybe just listening in and not looking at the screen. So awesome. I'm going to switch over presenters again, and now we'll have Christina be presenting. I'm managing the slides, but she will be doing the presentation. So just give me a second here. So we do have, started it in the wrong place. Okay, we do have another poll quickly. So thank you again, Jeannie, for everything. And she'll stay on the line for additional questions, but we'll fire up another poll here right now. So is lead service line replacement included in your capital improvement plan currently? Great. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this. 3, 2, 1, and share. So about 56% of the audience does have lead service line replacement included in their capital improvement plan, which is great. 22% have answered no, and then 17% not sure, and 6% not applicable. So that's great to hear that so many folks have lead service line replacement included in their capital improvement plan. Thanks for that. And we will move on. So we did the lessons learned, and one last poll, and then I promise this is the last one. Have you completed your lead service line inventory? Okay. Great. Close this and share. So we have about 50% of the folks, again, have completed their lead service line inventory. That's also really good to know. 37% no, 11% don't know, and for 5% it is not applicable. So thanks again for that. This is really important to this audience because these folks are, I'm sorry, for our panelists, because they are to reach out and help folks complete these things. And so this is really great information for them. All right. So how to seek support for your water infrastructure project. So thanks, Jeannie. And now we're turning it over to Christina Murphy of Delta Institute to start off our discussion on how to seek support in applying for funding for water infrastructure projects. So, Jeannie laid out all the stuff that needs to be done. And so now we'll talk about folks that can help you get it done. So Christina, can you go ahead and get on camera?
Sure. Can you see and hear me okay?
We can. Great, thanks.
Okay, great, thanks. So I'm Christina Murphy. I joined Delta Institute recently. Okay, there's the slides disappeared there for a second. And we are one of Region 5's EPA's Water Infrastructure Environmental Finance Center. So we offer direct technical assistance for communities to access these state revolving funds. Next slide, please. So our goal at the EFC, the Environmental Finance Center, is to provide direct capacity and technical assistance to help communities obtain that funding for clean water and drinking water projects. And we also have 3 additional partners that we work with, CNT, Current Water, and ASAP. You may be familiar with them. And together we all have a wide range of skill sets that can be very valuable to helping you plan your application, develop that, and get that submittal in. Next slide, please. And so getting into a little bit more detail here, what state revolving funds will pay for here. For the clean water section, stormwater and wastewater, so anything to do with wastewater treatment facilities, I&I, water conservation, groundwater and surface water protection and restoration, and stormwater management, both gray and green infrastructure. And under drinking water, anything to do with treatment, transmission, distribution, source, storage, consolidation of drinking water sources or systems, and also creation of new systems. And then to note, both security and energy conservation improvements are eligible under both programs. Next slide. So our focus is we provide comprehensive wraparound services. We meet you where you are at, and then we allow the process to move forward. So communities are all in different places as far as where they are with planning and assessment, figuring out how they're going to fund or finance these projects. A lot of them need to do some long-term planning and project maintenance. And then also, so that's where we come in and we provide that direct water focused technical assistance. Next slide. And so our strengths include community engagement, climate planning and project prioritization, lead service line identification and replacement, mapping and data visualization, engineering and design analysis, research and technology, green infrastructure design and implementation, procurement, and application preparation and scoring, and then again, helping you leverage other grant programs as part of that comprehensive funding for your project. Next slide. So who's eligible? Well, first, any local unit of government. And then from there, what we're prioritizing is communities who have not received an SRF loan in more than 3 years, or are a disadvantaged community based on the state criteria. And then also privately owned, like not-for-profit community water supply or wastewater treatment agencies are also available or also eligible for this kind of funding. Next slide. So how to get started on having the EFC provide you technical assistance. There is a process to getting started. The first step here is requesting that we help you. And there is an intake form. The link is provided on this slide. It's on the EPA's website. And what you do is you fill out that form. You should probably check to just double check first to make sure your project is going to be eligible for this kind of water technical assistance. And we can, at Delta, we can help you fill out that intake form if you require it. So next slide, please. And to just lead you through the process of what happens after you submit a technical assistance request, you fill out that form to start with, and we're going to start here in the left, top left corner and kind of move our way through the slides. So EPA then will review your request, and they will also EPA to get a little bit more information, make sure that it meets the state's requirements. And from there, if they say this project is good to go, they send that eligible request to the EFC. And then Delta or one of our partners would pick it up from there. And what we do is we reach out to that requester, and we then complete the scope of work. So, we want to, sometimes what happens is they think they have one project, and then when you start discussing it and talking it through, there's some other things that come up that they want to include or be more holistic, or you just find out that, oh, they have this other need as well that's unmet. And so kind of combining whatever their needs are into that scope of work. And then from there, once everyone is on the same page, we create a memo of understanding, and that is signed between the EFC and the community so that we can officially provide that technical assistance going forward. And that's when we begin our technical assistance work. Next slide, please. So I just want to give some examples of assistance that we're already providing around the region. Here in the western suburbs of Chicago, we have a project that's for stormwater for green infrastructure. We're reviewing their current stormwater plan. We're identifying any gaps and opportunities to provide additional green infrastructure in their community. In north central Indiana, we're also providing a stormwater green infrastructure technical assistance program. That is related, though, to climate mitigation and adaptation. They are in the process of updating their climate action plan. So what they want to do is use green infrastructure as something that they can mitigate the impacts they're feeling from climate changes. And again, green infrastructure can reduce those flows into existing gray infrastructure, whether it be stormwater, combined sewers, or separate sanitary sewers, and reduce those impacts of potential overflows. And then in southeastern Michigan, we are helping them with stormwater, green and gray infrastructure, having a needs assessment, and then prioritizing those solutions to help them plan how to reduce flooding. And they also are, we're also helping them with drinking water as well. Like I said, it doesn't have to just stick to one topic. It can encompass more than one focus area. So their drinking water, we're looking at their assessment and prioritization of their solutions. And that is kind of an example of some of the projects that are available in this region. So next slide, please. And so please reach out and connect with us. Follow us on social media. We're on all the different platforms there. Also, check out our website. We have a lot on that EFC. The link there is provided. Subscribe to our newsletter. We'll tell you about what we're doing, different projects in the area, and you can connect with us as well through that website. But that EFC web page there, it has a lot of information. So, when you're getting started, if you're not quite sure, that webpage is a really great resource to kind of figure out, does my project qualify, under which category, and those kinds of things. So I definitely recommend looking at that. And next slide, please. And so thank you, and you can reach out to me directly if you'd like to. My email's there. And I think at this point, I'll hand it back to Ruth and answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Yeah, if anybody has any questions for Christina or Bill, actually, Slicer is also on the call here today. So if anybody has any questions about how to engage with the EFCs, please go ahead and you can raise your hand, or and I can pull you off mute, or you can type it into the question section. But while we're waiting for folks to do that, I just wanted to give Build Up Cook a minute one more time. Jeannie, if you're out there and you can unmute yourself, to talk a little bit about what Build Up Cook is what Build Up Cook's outreach sort of template looks like.
Right. So very quickly, because I know Bill's going to come on here, I don't want to cut him short, but I Build Up Cook, what we are doing is sitting down. We have a group of us that's water, stormwater, wastewater, which is Arcadis, and then we have another consultant called STV that's doing facilities projects. And what we do is we actually sit down all together. We actually collaborate and try to get as many needs listed for each community as possible. That might be, sort of an easy I guess low-hanging fruit for the immediate ARPA funding, but we are also fundraising for this program, so there will be a future. And so what we do is we get in there and we just have a conversation with the municipalities about what are you in need of, what's dire, and how can we help. So really, it's a fantastic program. I can't say enough good things about it because they're really investing and putting their money where their mouth is. And it's a fantastic group and a fantastic plan. So that's really, I think I touched more on what they do in the beginning of my speech. So if you have any questions, please reach out. And our director is Drew Williams-Clark with the Bureau of Asset Management at Cook County. And I know he'd be open to speaking to anyone.
Great, thank you. So Bill, I have a question for you. So the EFC, right now, how is the process works where you go through the US EPA, takes the initial documentation or application from utilities or municipalities, and then how does that flow to you? And also your twin, I guess, in Great Lakes CAP. How are those decisions made? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the federal intake form that we had linked earlier is actually for communities to access 6 different federal water technical assistance programs beyond just the Environmental Finance Center. So EPA is trying to make sure that communities get access to wherever they're at with their water technical assistance needs. So that's why there's this kind of comprehensive screening process. And we can actually do intake 2 ways, or actually multiple ways. So if you're already working with your state agency and you're looking for technical assistance to get you to that next step with those different pieces that were laid out earlier, they might reach out to Region 5 EPA and then connect communities to a water and environmental finance center. Additionally, you can come to us directly. You can come to our website. We actually have our own intake form, which is a lot easier than the federal form, and we can contact you and kind of put a form together and work with EPA prior to you putting in a federal intake form. So that part's, we can also do that. But really what happens is when it finally gets over to Region 5, they look at what the community has requested and then decides based on the capacity that both of the environmental finance centers have and the skill sets, who would work best. And I'll just, so that's kind of how the decision making happens. The other thing that I'll add on is, as you could even see from today, there's a lot of technical assistance and support coming from a lot of different programs, both regionally, through the county, through the state, through the federal government. Just know that we are trying to coordinate as much as possible. So I've already met with the Build Up Cook team to make sure that if they're working in a community, that we're not also like coming in and like and making things pretty messy. We want to work together and in parallel for the different needs of communities. And if they identify, you know, a need to access SRF and we can help, then they'll bring us in.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it is confusing to people. There's so much support, you know, it's almost too much support and they don't know where to go. So they should, and I think that's really great to hear that from you, that they can rely on you and us and others to help tease out who would be the proper connect for them at their particular time. Great. So I don't have any other questions right now. Again, please put them in the chat, but I'm going to move on here just to sort of close out the session as we're waiting for questions to come in. So don't forget to download the handouts. I know that there's a few that are a little problematic, and we will get you all of those links. The information that Jeannie mentioned, also we'll make sure you have them, in the links that that Delta Institute also provided in their presentation. We'll make sure that you have all of that information in an email shortly by the end of the week. So that would be tomorrow. We'll have that all to you as well as the recording of this presentation. Also look for a follow-up survey. As I mentioned before, that's going to be really important to us. We'd love to get your feedback on this webinar, but also on future webinars that we may want to put on again in 2024, coming up quick. And then thank you to everyone for participating and for our presenters. We really appreciate everybody's help pulling this presentation together quickly, and everyone sticking with us through the presentation today. Again, if you need additional information, or for some reason you do not get an email from me, maybe it goes into your spam. We have a lot of issues trying to get, especially when there's attachments, getting information to people. So please, if you don't receive something from me in the next 24 or 36 hours, please reach out to me. My phone number is there, 773-269-4065, or ruth.kersey@elevatenp.org. And that's it. Thank you again to all of our presenters for joining us today, and look for more coming soon from Cook County TAP. Take care, everyone.